Today on TK Friday, it's another full edit. I'm calling this one Harmony of Nature. Stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. It is TK Friday, again my favorite day of the week. Today's image comes to us by Nigel Crooks. This image was taken at Long Preston, Craven District, North Yorkshire, England. I'm entitling this one Harmony of Nature. Such a lovely scene in England with a babbling brook and a beautiful pastoral landscape. I really love it, but let's go ahead and jump into this. Now, I always start out here in Lightroom, and this is what the image looks like before any editing. This is right out of the camera. This was shot at ISO 160. It's a 33mm lens shot at f8.0, 1/400th of a second. And after I do my initial adjustments on it here in Lightroom, it now looks like this. I did use a linear profile for Nigel's camera, Pentax K5. And then I basically click on auto, and then I just made sure that my white and blacks were not clipping. And I do my typical, just some sharpening on it, no noise reduction. It's shot at ISO 160, so it'd be very low in noise anyway. And then as far as lens corrections, I always use remove chromatic aberrations and enable profile correction. So I check these both on, and that's it. And then at this point, I just right click and go to edit in Photoshop 2024, but I'm already there. And here we are in Photoshop, ready to begin with the TK9 plugin for Photoshop. Are you ready for this edit? And I hope you give this a try. By the way, you can download the image as well as the PDF notes. You'll find Dropbox links in the description below this video. Just click more to open up that description so you can see everything in there. And look for the Dropbox links for the image as well as the PDF notes. And give this edit a try. I'd like to thank all of you who have sent me images in, and if you have an image that you want me to edit on a TK Friday, go down in that description near the bottom and you'll find a contact me. Contact me and we can discuss editing one of your images on a TK Friday. I'd love to do that. And by the way, if you don't yet own the TK9 plugin for Photoshop, you can save 15% off the TK9 plugin for Photoshop along with training videos. Use my promo code DK15. That gets you 15% off of everything. Not only are you saving money, but you're supporting the joy of editing with Dave Kelly when you use that promo code DK15. So thank you all for using my promo code. I really appreciate it. Now, the first thing I want to do is balance and contrast out the image. Now, I will do the foreground separately from the sky, and I'm going to do something a little different this week. I had a comment last week suggesting a way that I could speed up this workflow. I went back and looked through the comments to see what it was so I could give you a shout out. I could not find it, but whoever you are, thank you very much. The first thing we want to do is on a Mac, hold your command key down, or a PC, hold your control key down and click on the sky selection button. And what that does is it saves the sky out as a channel. And now hold your command or control key down and double click the sky button, and that saves us out a foreground channel. Now here is where the difference comes in. I'm going to come up now and click on the luminosity mask button and click on this button right here for midtones 3. And all that does is protect the shadows and highlights from clipping. In other words, the highlights won't lose any detail, nor will the shadows if I do a really aggressive color grading luminosity adjustment. Okay, so that's important. And that's all I'm using this for. And now we're going to output this to a color grading tool. And there you can see that midtones 3 mask on that layer right now. I need to duplicate this layer because remember, I want to do the foreground and sky separately. So if we click this button right here, we can duplicate that layer. Then we're going to come back and make this layer active. And now what we're going to do is hold your command or control key down, and this time click on the mask calculator. And all that does when you hold the command or control key down and click on the mask calculator is keeps the mask calculator open. In other words, after you make a calculation, it'll normally just shut down, or it will shut down all the time. But if you hold the command or control key down and click on the mask calculator, it'll stay open. And then you'll just click the X to close it when you're done with it. So what I want to do first is on this first layer is I want to click on foreground, and I want to intersect it into that mids 3 mask by clicking on this X. And as you can see, there it is right there. Now we're going to go ahead and adjust here for the foreground, and then we'll move to the sky in a minute after we get the foreground adjusted. I'll start out with midtones, so we're going to click this button here for midtones, and I want to open those midtones up to the right. Now when you move the slider, you don't see a change until you release the slider, then you see the change. I'm going to take this over to right here, and now we're going to go to shadow. So we're going to click the shadow button, and I'll drag this slider to the left to darken up the shadows, and we're going to take it to right here, -23. Now I just want to offset some of the yellow here. So see where my cursor is on the color grading tool on the color wheel? Just move it to right around this area right here and give it a click. And we'll color grade that shadow area just a little bit towards blue, not much. And now we're going to go over to adjust the highlights. So we're going to click on this button. And I just want to open up those highlights to right here. Let's look at the before and after. Let me shut this layer off. Here's before. And here's after. Nice contrast. I really love the foreground. Now we're going to work on the sky. So let's click on the sky layer and make it active. Our calculator is still open here. Now we're going to click on sky. We're going to do the same thing and click the X to intersect the sky into this MIDS 3 mask by clicking this X. And there you can see it. And now we're going to start out with midtones. So we'll click on the midtone button. And I think I want to lighten up the midtones. So I'll drag this slider to the right, to right there, +21. Now there's some shadows up in here, so let's click on the shadow button. And I'll drag this slider to the left to right here, -39. And now let's address the highlights. So I'll click the highlight button. And I think I'll pull the highlights back to like a -39 right there. Now let me go back to midtones because I do want to add a little bit of blue because there's gray up in here and the gray is just dull. Let's add a little bit of life to this. Let's add some blue in here. So I'm going to just hover my cursor right around here. I'm just going to take a guess, and I think this looks good right here. I'm going to give that a click. See how that adds a little blue? That might be a little too much, so if I take this cursor and move it back to about here and click again, see that's a little less blue, and I think I like that better. So check it out. Here is the before, and here's the after. Now let's close the calculator. Let me click the X so I can get my combo panel back, because I'm going to get to this button right here, the before after button. I love this button. So if we click it, we can see where we started from. We started here, and now we're here. So we're already off to a really good start. Now, after that first balance and contrast, that's a very important step, because now what I do is take some time and look at the image and study it over and decide what I think needs done next. And I think I would like to darken up all the darkest tones of this image. Okay, now I'm going to use a luminosity mask for that, but I can't get to it right now because I have a color grading tool in the way. So if I click this X, we'll close the color grading tool, but nothing changes on these color grading layers. Now I can click on the luminosity mask button. And I want to find a darks mask that will really target the area that I want. Now, it defaults at lights 1, and these are lights over this way. These are darks to the left. So here's darks 1, and I just go through these. Here's darks 2. I'm looking for really dark tones. Darks 3, as I move to the left, I'm finding darker tones. Here's darks 4, and here is darks 5. Okay, so that's darks 5. That's probably a little too dark, but let's try some channels here. This is the RGB channel. Here's the red channel. Here's the green channel. Here's the blue channel. But look at that blue channel. That just excites me because it lights up a lot more of these darker areas, and I really like that. I'm getting good isolation here, but all the light areas are the dark areas I want to hit. And I could go through. Cyan's going to be similar. Nah, it's not as good as blue, is it? Here's magenta. Magenta and blue are close. And here is yellow. Yellow is not good, but I'm going to use blue, and that's really nice. Now, I'm going to do something a little different. There's all kind of different ways of doing adjustments in Photoshop. I'm going to use a different tool, and that will be this tool right here for brightness and contrast. So we're going to click it, and that applies that mask to a brightness contrast adjustment. You see that right there? And what I want to do is I want to darken those areas, so I can start out with the brightness slider, and I'm going to drag it back so I can darken those areas. Isn't that cool? And I'm going to take it back to like a -106. And now I can also work with contrast. I can give it more contrast by going to the right or less contrast to the left. And I think I'll increase that contrast. I'm going to come up to right here, +66. Now check it out. Here's the before and here's the after. See how it just targets all of those dark tones? That's exciting to me. I love that. I'm building even more contrast and it looks really nice. Now here's something fun to do. You see this button right here, this X. You'll also find it on the CX panel, but mine's opened up for actions. You'll find it on either panel. What this does, if you click it, it will disable this mask. So let's see how this mask is controlling those dark tones. If I click on this X, that's what the adjustment would look like. Pretty dark, right? But if I click this again and enable the mask, you can see. And again, here is the before, and here's the after, just targeting those really dark tones. Pretty cool. But this is a good button to check, just to see what your mask is doing. Now back to studying the image. When I look at this image, I love this babbling brook up through here, but it's a little bit too light, causing my eye to kind of just stay in this area. I want to look here, but I don't want to be drawn here constantly, so I want to be able to get into the entire image. So I want to just darken down some of the lighter tones in the water. And to do that, we're going to go back up to our friend, the luminosity mask button, click it, and now I need to find a lights tone. That's lights 1. I'm trying to isolate this water the best I can. Here's lights 2. Getting better. Here's lights 3. Getting some pretty good separation here, but let's go back to channels. This is RGB. Let's try red. And get in the habit of going through these channels. It's really a good thing because sometimes you can get a better mask if you do it. Here's green, and now here's blue. Look how blue isolates that. Isn't that great? And keep going. Here's cyan, about the same. Here's magenta, a little broader, and here's yellow. Not good. So let's go back to blue. Blue is our friend on this image, okay? So we're going to use blue. And then what I'm going to do is grab a lasso tool. Now you can type L to get your lasso tool. And with that lasso tool, we're just going to lasso right around this water area, just like this. Okay, and then we can click on this button, and this will mask the mask. And a Gaussian blur dialog comes up. You can feather it by dragging this radius to the right, but I don't really need any feathering here because I have really good isolation separation here, so I don't have to use any blending by feathering. Sometimes that really comes in handy, so we're just going to leave it with the radius to 0.1, which is effectively no blurring. We'll click OK. And now you can see there's our water selected for us right there. And now all we need to do is output this. And I'm going to use another brightness contrast adjustment layer by clicking this button. We have the brightness contrast adjustment layer with that mask on it. And now what I want to do is darken up that water a little bit. So I'll take this brightness slider and start to drag it to the left. See how I can darken that water? I don't want to go too much, so I'm going to go right here, -47. And now I'm going to pull back on the contrast a little bit to the left to reduce the contrast to right here, -21. Now check it out. This is going to be minor, but here's before and here's after. But see how it just tones that water down? There's before and here is after. So now the water's not grabbing our attention as much. And again, it's a minor adjustment, but you know, sometimes it's very important to pay attention to details. Again, let's take a look one more time at the water. Here's before and here's after. It just tones it down a little tiny bit. The next thing I want to do is address the saturation in the grassy areas here. And let's use a color mask to do that. So let's click on this button on the multi-mask panel. And I'm going to find a tone like that represents a lot of that grass, like right about here, and we're going to click OK. And now you can see we're targeting just those grassy areas. And I think everything looks good as far as the adjustment. So what we'll do is output this to a hue saturation adjustment layer. And with this targeted adjustment tool, we can click on this and we'll click right in this area right here. And we can see we have yellows right here, and I think we're good. But let's pull back on the saturation a little bit. And I'll take it back just a little bit. And again, attention to details to like a -15. Here's the before and here's the after. It just tones it down slightly. But I also want to shift the hue a little bit cooler. We're going to move it to the right, which will give us a little bit more of a green feel. So I'm going to take this to the right to right about here, like a +5. So check it out. Here is the before and here's the after. See how it's a little bit more on the green side? So before and after. It tones some of that yellowing down. All right, now I'm looking at this building back here and also these fences and this fence over here in this little area right here. I'm going to use an object selection tool. So click in your object selection tool and put it in the lasso mode. Make sure you have sample all layers on. I have hard edge. And basically what I want to do is just go around this building, select it like so. And then hold your shift key down and then just add these other fences, however these fences are made of some kind of stone or whatever. We can just grab all these guys like this. And this tool is really good and it'll really latch on to these fences like this. You can be kind of sloppy here. See how it gets it? And even this guy over here. Yeah, and I can even get this little area right here. Whoops, too small of a selection. I can switch to the lasso tool, just type L, hold your shift key down, and we'll just lasso in that little area right there. Now let's go back to the object selection tool. And I'm going to grab this over here, hold your shift key down so we can continue to add to our selection. Just like that. And I'll get this little area right up into here as well. And right up in here. Okay, we got all that. And how about this guy back here too? Just going to come the whole way around, trying to be a little fast here. But you can see it does a really good job. And I'll get this little guy right here too. I'm going to leave this fence out. You can grab it if you want to, but I think we're good here. And now all I want to do, I have that selection. Let's grab a hue saturation adjustment layer. So we're going to click right here. And now you can see, if you click the double arrow here, you can see there's all our selections right there. Pretty good. Click the double arrow again, we're back to the image. Now I just want to add some saturation. Now again, this is another attention to detail. This is going to be a minor adjustment, but I just want a little bit of saturation on this building. It's very low saturation. So I'm just going to use master, and don't forget the building and all these fence areas we have selected will get adjustments. So we're going to take the saturation and we can start to drag it to the right. You see that, how they're all getting saturation? Now that looks horrible, right? We only want to add a little bit here. I'm just going to, right here, plus 35. And I also want to maybe just darken this a little bit. I'll use the lightness slider and just start to drag to the left a little bit, right there. So check it out. We're mainly looking at the building, but you also see it a little bit on the fences. Let me go ahead and really zoom in here so you can see. Now, here is the before. You see that on the building? And look at this fence right here and this fence back here. And here is the after. But you see that little bit of extra saturation? I think that really helps. Now, I want to address these rocks, all these light rocks in here, because they're kind of pulling our eye here, and we need to just tone those down. Again, attention to detail. Tone them down a little bit so we're not staring at this area too much. We want to go into the entire image. So let's burn these, okay? And what we can do is, there's a lot of orange tone in here, so I think a color mask will work. So we'll click this color mask button, and we're going to click some of this tone that represents these rocks, like right here. Let's click OK. And as you can see how that water is not getting selected that much? We could go ahead and lighten up that selection a little bit so we get a little bit stronger adjustment there. We don't want to go too much, but then we can take this slider and drag it to the left to tighten up that selection to maybe somewhere right about here. And I think that's going to be good. And now we can output this to a burn tool. Now this burn tool has two sides. The left side will give you a 50% gray layer. The right side will give you a transparent pixel layer. You can use either side. We'll be burning through a selection. I'm going to use the left side. So I'll click this, and you can see there's our 50% gray layer with the soft light blend mode. Now, my brush opacity is at 30%. If yours isn't, you can type your 3 key to get you the 30%. And now all we want to do is, with a nice soft edge brush, just start to paint. Now, if you paint and then lift and paint again, you'll add more darkening. But let's go ahead and just get all these rocks. Just tone these guys down. So I'm lifting my brush and painting this area again, and over here I'm lifting, and here. Just want to tone them down just to, again, to keep our viewer. We want our viewer to look here, but we don't want them to stare right here. We want them to get into the rest of the image. So we're just going to hit all these rocks. Any one of these rocks you see, like this guy is really light, and we can just tone him down. This guy down in here, we'll tone him down. This rock right here, we'll go over it a few times in here. But this is burning, and I love to burn. And some of these rocks over here, we can grab these guys. Even these guys over here on the left-hand side, we can go over those a few times. But take your time, you know. I'm doing a video, and I got to go kind of on the fast side here because you don't want to watch me all day painting rocks here. So I'm just going to get these again. But remember, if you lift that brush and paint again, you're going to add some more darkening. And I think we're going to be okay there. Okay, so let's check it out. Here is the before, and here is the after. Now there's a couple rocks back here lying that I should tone down, and right there. Again, the before and the after. Now, if you went too strong, you can take your opacity off and then just build it up slowly and stop where you think it looks good. And I may just tone mine back to like 91 right there. And now let's take a look. Here is the before. I'm just shutting this layer off by clicking this eyeball. Here is the before, and here is the after. And there's also a button on the combo and 6 panel here to see the little eye. And I believe if you use this button, it doesn't use a history state, I'm pretty sure. Whenever you have a layer selected, click this eye. You can shut that layer off by clicking that button. There's the before, and there's the after. Now, what I think I'm going to do to build up a little more contrast is dodge or lighten up some of the lighter areas in this image. And I'll use another different technique. There's, again, many ways of doing the same thing in Photoshop. I'm going to use this new button on the TK9 multi-mask panel, and that's this blend if mask generation button. So we're going to click on this, and I'm looking for light tones, lighter tones. So this is lights 1. Here's lights 2. And see all the lighter areas like in the grasses down in here. These are the areas I want to hit, and I want to use this mask to help me. But instead of using it as a mask, now right now I could output it to a dodge tool if I wanted to. But here's a little tip. If you hold your shift key down, what I want to do this time, I'm just going to use the right side of the dodge tool for the transparent pixel layer. So hold your shift key down on Mac or PC and click right here. That gives you lights 2 on the layer utilizing blend if. I won't be dodging through a selection, but blend if will be protecting me and targeting just the light areas I've selected. I'm going to start up here in the sky with a nice soft edge brush about this size right here. And right now my opacity is at 30%. I'm going to go way down to 5%. So hold your 0 key down and type your 5 key. That gets you 5%. And now we're just going to go across the sky. Just painting across the entire sky, even over that tree. It'll hit the light areas of the tree. Down into here. I lifted the brush. I'm going to paint again. I'm just going over light areas now. Over in here, up in here. Let's take a look. Here is the before. And here's the after. See how it just lightened up some of the lighter areas up in there? And now I'm going to make my brush smaller and go to 10% opacity. Type your 1 key. And now I'm going to start in this area up in here. See, I'm just going to get some of these lighter grass areas up in here. Just, again, to build up a little bit of contrast. And remember, every time you lift that brush, I can't say that enough, and paint again. Like I lift it, I'm going to paint again, hit this again. Those areas will become a little bit lighter. And I'm going to get over in here too. And some of this grass up in here, some light areas in here. And again, that blend if is only targeting the really light areas. I'm going to come across here. Make my brush smaller, come across this area up in here a couple times, lifting the brush. You can also use your left and right bracket keys to adjust the brush size to what you need. And this is where you have to take your artistic license and say, what do I want to light up? And even down in here on this dirt area in here, some of these lighter areas in here, I'm lifting a couple times and painting again. Maybe over in here a little bit. How about this little bit of grass in here? Okay. Maybe across here. Get these sheep back up in here. They're light, so we can get those. Let's see what we got so far. Here is the before, and here is the after. See how that just adds a little bit of depth and dimension in there? These guys over here. I think that's good. I think I'm going to call that done, but take your time, and I'm sure I've missed some areas I wanted to lighten, but I don't want to spend too much time here, but you get the idea, right? Here's the before, and here is the after. I might just come up into here, lighten this up a little bit, and over here. So one more time, here's the before, and here is the after. Now, I could have used the luminosity mask and then dodged through a selection. It really doesn't matter. I like to show you different ways of doing the same thing, and then you decide on which way you like to use. So it's all about choice here in Photoshop and TK9. Now, once we're nearing the end here, I always like to try like color luminosity. So let me click on the color luminosity action. If your actions aren't open, you can click on your TK button, but mine are already open. So I'll click on color loom for color luminosity. And that opens up a black and white adjustment layer in a luminosity blend mode. Now we're going to be working with color contrast here. Now there's not a whole lot of colors in here, right? Mainly like some blue, maybe some cyan, and maybe yellow and green. So I'm just going to work on two colors, and that will be green and blue. So what I want to do for the green is darken up the green. So I'm going to take this green slider and drag it to the left and see how that builds up some nice, like kind of like burns some of those green tones, right? And what I want to do is bring it over to -30 right there. Now check that out. Here's the before and here's the after, but isn't that a nice little adjustment right there? And now let's work on blue. And all I want to do is darken up the blue. So I'm going to take this to right here, -21. Now here is the before and here is the after. So that is a powerful adjustment, wouldn't you say? And now for the final step, we're going to go ahead and add a vignette because every landscape needs a vignette. I'm just going to use a basic vignette. So I'm going to click on my vignette button. Again, if your actions aren't open, click on your TK button. A Gaussian blur dialog comes up. Just click OK. I always accept the radius that it gives me. And it defaults at an opacity of 30%. Here's the before, here's the after. And what I want to do is protect the lightest lights and the darkest darks. And so what we'll do is use Blend Diff for that. So we'll come to the multi-mask panel and click on this Edit Blend Diff button. And I experimented here with No Lights 1, No Lights 2. And I found that I like No Lights 2 the best, so I'll click on No Lights 2 right here. And then I want to also protect my darkest darks. For here, I used No Darks 2. Now, I can only click one of these buttons, but I do know this. If you want No Darks 2, all you need to do is take this top slider on the shadow side here, and you want to drag this over to 100. And then you want to take this other slider on the bottom and drag this over to 20. Right there. And that will be a No Darks 2. Now, just to recap, you can only use one of these No buttons, okay? Like No Darks 1, No Darks 2, No Lights 1, No Lights 2, No Midtones 1, No Midtones 2. You can only use one of those buttons. So that's why I started out with No Lights 2 because I knew I wanted that. But then I knew that if I would move this bottom slider to 20 and the top slider over to 100, if I click on this right here, you can see 2100 and 155 and 235. Those are your numbers for No Darks 2 and No Lights 2. So now let's check it out. Here is the before the vignette. Here is the after vignette. And I ended up taking my opacity up a little bit more, up to 40. So again, before and after. Now I'm going to shut off the Edit Blend Diff just to see how it's affecting this vignette. So see where it says gray in this checkbox, uncheck it. And now that's what the vignette looks like without the effect of Edit Blend Diff. And now when I turn it back on, now really study the image. I'm turning it on now. All right. Now shut it off. You see that? I'll turn it back on. And now I will shut off the actual vignette itself. That's without the vignette, and that's with the vignette. So what I'm doing is protecting the very light areas and the very dark areas from getting too dark. And it makes your vignettes look more pleasing. I think that's a good word. It makes the vignettes look more pleasing or more appealing, not so over the top. Now let's check out the overall before and after. So I'm going to come to my combo panel and click my before after button. So we started out here after Lightroom, and now we end up here. So I'm really happy with this, and I really hope you give this edit a try. Make sure you download the image and the PDF notes found in the description below this video. Click on more to open up that description. I hope you enjoyed today's full edit tutorial, and it's another TK Friday, and it comes so close. I really appreciate all my viewers every day of the week, but TK Fridays are always special to me. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And if you're not yet a subscriber to this channel, please subscribe. click that bell notification icon and also click all so you'll receive all notifications. And then every time I upload a new tutorial, you'll get notified about it. I want to thank each and every one of you for joining me today in the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. I'll see you all right here next time, but until then, happy editing!